From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts. Welcome to Community Catalysts, the podcast for civic leaders committed to building trust, uniting communities, and making local government work for everyone. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. Each episode, we explore the real-world experiences that shape leadership, how people step up, navigate challenges, and create meaningful change. Follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is part of a monthly series sponsored by RELI, the Regional Elected Leaders Initiative at the Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University. RELI supports and connects regional leaders across Northern Virginia, equipping them to tackle complex challenges through collaboration and innovation. By sponsoring this episode, RELI is sharing those insights with local leaders everywhere, and I'm truly grateful for that. Today we turn our focus to Fairfax County, Virginia, home to the nation's 9th largest school district, where public education serves an increasingly diverse community. Among the many leaders working to ensure all students have the opportunity to succeed is Il-Young Moon, an at-large member of the Fairfax County School Board. Il-Young's path to public service is remarkable. He immigrated to the United States as a teenager, navigating a new country and a new language while building a future for himself. His journey from second language learner to elected leader is a testament to perseverance, public service, and the power of education. As the first Korean American elected in Virginia, he has played a vital role in shaping one of the most prominent school districts in the country, helping to bridge cultures, foster trust in public education, and advocate for student success. Il-Young Moon, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Well, thanks for the invite. I know, Matt, that I've been somewhat reluctant to schedule
That's for sure.
get together, but I'm happy to be here.
Tell me why you've been reluctant to be a guest on my podcast.
Oh, I am one of those people who are, even though I may be an elected official and community leaders, but I'm still publicity shy and I'm a relatively quiet person. So, but I'm here. Sometimes you got to do what you have to do.
Il-Young, I suspect there are a lot of publicity-shy elected leaders around the country. Maybe you're representing a whole bunch of people who we have never heard from before.
I may be, but thank you again.
Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate your being open to the conversation. Il-Young, your journey to leadership really is remarkable. Tell us what it was like. You came here as a teenager. I understand you had to repeat a year of high school while learning English. Can you just take us back to that time? What was it like navigating a new country, a new language, a new school system?
So I came to the U.S. back in 1974. I just turned 17, finished sophomore year in Korea. It was in the middle of, if I had continued, schools in Korea, it was after the first semester during my junior year, but I actually, after the sophomore year, I did take semester up, just waiting for the visa to come out. It was taking a long time for the visa to come out. Arrived here at the end of August 1974, but I knew that I wanted to go to college. And in order for me to go to college, I obviously needed to learn English first. And I wanted to have a little more time before I went to college. And so I did ask a school that I began attending, whether I could start from sophomore year. And they let me do that. So I repeated sophomore year. So sophomore and junior and senior, 3 years. By the time I went to college, I already was 20 years old. Compared to some of my classmates, I was at least 2, if not 3 years older. So that's how I started my education in the U.S. and my life in the U.S. And at the very beginning, obviously everything was new to me, and language was new. A lot of cultural aspects was new. I didn't have any friend here. We didn't have any other relatives. I'm a Korean American. I came from Korea. A sizable Korean community in the Washington metropolitan area back then was small, just a couple of thousand at the time, as I recall. So since, and also I came from a family without much financial means.
Yeah.
Both of my parents were undereducated. My father didn't get to finish high school because he left North Korea. I mean, he was born and grew up in North Korea,
Oh.
and he left North to come to the South all by himself during the Korean War. And so he didn't get to finish high school. And then my mom, who grew up in the rural part of South Korea as the youngest child of a very, very poor farmers. And back then, they did not believe in educating women. And so my mother only had a second grade education. Neither of them spoke English, but they wanted to support the family. So all they could do, and they did, was working hard as many hours as possible. They did work.
Did they come to this country with you as well?
My father first came in 1973. He learned how to come to the U.S. when he was working as a technician for a Korean company who was a subcontractor for American company providing services to American military in Vietnam. Wow. And there, he stayed there for 2 years and he learned how to come to the U.S. So after he returned from Vietnam to Korea, he applied to get a job in Washington, D.C. And that's how he came in 1973. Rest of the family, my mom and me, my two younger sisters, followed in 1974.
So Il-young, you came to this country as a high school student. You didn't know any English when you came here?
So to be honest, in Korea back then, everybody was required to study English starting from 7th grade.
Yes.
However, so before I came, I had 4 years of English in school, but it was mostly just reading passages, picking up vocabulary words, and learning grammar. There was no listening and there was no speaking done because teachers were not equipped to teach listening or speaking.
We just have to make the connection because I didn't know this about you until I looked up your biography at the school district. And so you arrived here as a student, you immersed yourself in English language, you repeated a grade so that you could really master it. And 3-4 years later, you went to college. Tell everyone where you went to college.
I was very lucky. I had good teachers and I don't know what they saw in me, but they gave me great recommendations. They told me they did. I didn't get to read them. Counselor did. And so with all that support, I put in a lot of work. And I was lucky to get admitted to places like MIT, Caltech, RPI, and Harvard. And my father wanted me to go to MIT and said that you, as an Asian, it's easier to get a job, probably have a better chance in having a great, better career in math, science, or engineering than anything else. So go to MIT. But I debated a lot, argued with him a lot. Why not Harvard? Why not Harvard? And and also with my, physics, my science department had Dr. Duncan, who also taught me physics. And he was also recommending me to go to MIT because he saw my skills and my talent in math and science, because I was a top student in math and science, not necessarily language arts or humanities, etc. But at the end, he said, Il-young, in either place, you'll get a great education. You want to go to Harvard? Go ahead.
And so you went to Harvard. You were in this country for 4 years. You had
3 years.
3 years. You had to learn English and to really make yourself fluent in it, change everything. And you still got into Harvard, which is pretty amazing.
That's something good about Harvard. Math, looking back, Harvard did not just look at my SAT scores. I'm not going to diverge my SAT scores, but because even though my math score was perfect, My verbal score was very low, but they wanted to see how I was improving in my language skills. So they wanted to monitor that. So instead of accepting me through early action, I applied for early action. MIT and Caltech accepted me through early action. Harvard wanted to wait until regular decision time, wanted to see how I progress in language acquisition. And they felt comfortable that I could come to Harvard and get educated and become a very contributing, productive member of community. And they were absolutely right. They made a right decision, and I made a right decision to go there.
So you went to Harvard, which is wonderful. And just to finish that story, you ended up going to law school at the College of William and Mary.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Those verbal skills must have come up a whole lot.
That language arts was something that I felt very comfortable with growing up in Korea, even though math might have been my easiest, maybe where I excelled the best, even in Korea. But Korean language came to me naturally. And I did a lot of public speaking in middle school and high school and even elementary school. And so perhaps even as a second language learner, doing something with the second language called English was something probably I felt I became more, familiar or became more comfortable with. So here I am.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So you finished law school, you go into practice, I assume. At some point along the way, you decided to run for public office. I know I'm jumping a whole lot ahead, but tell me, was there a moment, was there an experience? What was it that made you say, I need to run for the school board?
I need to take you back to Korea. Growing up in Korea, in schools, I was for many years in the leadership role. And I was considered to be, one of the smartest kids in school. And so a lot of people had a lot of expectation about me. And also growing up in Korea, with that, I thought that I would perhaps go to law school, become a lawyer. And in one day, I may even consider running for public office. That was my childhood dream.
It was a childhood dream to run for public office in Korea.
In Korea. And then you come to the States, you come to the US, a new country. I mean, you really have to work hard to adapt new surrounding, new environment, everything new. So a immigrant like me in mid-1990s, that's when I first ran for school board, didn't really think about running for public office. Then, after practicing law for about 10 years in Korean community, most of my clients back then were Korean, Korean Americans. They came to see me because they could communicate with me in Korean that they were comfortable with. And so around that time, I was looking at myself and then see, come on, Il-Young, you are now in the US for now what? About this almost 20 years in the US, but you seem to be still living in small Korean community. All your clients are Koreans. You married Korean woman. Your 2 kids born in the US, they are Koreans. Went to Korean church. I would read Korean paper, listen to Korean radio, watch Korean videos, and speak Korean probably 95% of the times. So I felt that small space in this huge country. And by then, I also had 2 sons born in the US. And I had a lot of expectations from them. I wanted them to achieve their dreams, pursue their dreams, their full potential realized, and never consider color of their skin to become a limitation. but I was not a good role model for them. I had expectations for them, but I wasn't doing the same thing for myself.
You say you weren't a good role model. In what way were you not a good role model?
Because I was not even thinking about pursuing the dream I used to have back in Korea.
You're saying you were living kind of a very narrow version of the life you wanted to lead, and you felt the need to live larger in this country.
Absolutely. I became embarrassed with the way I was living in the US at the time. And so, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. And around that time, I also happened to see a newspaper article on one very prominent paper in this area and about Fairfax County School Board becoming an elected board, changing its system from appointed board to the elected board for the first time in November of 1995. I mean, I think I saw that article about a year before the election. But I thought, I saw that and didn't give much thought about that. And then a few months later, I saw an article again. And I said, oh, okay, if I want to, give a try for a public office, probably education is something where I could make, most contributions. And because, whether it's true or not, there may be a belief that Asians truly care about education, and that's and I had done just fine in education. And so I said, maybe that's an area that I can make some contributions, and then maybe the best area I can do it. So I jumped in, but my goal was not necessarily to win, but I needed to give myself a chance to try something that I had a dream for when I was growing up in Korea. As I did, I wouldn't say nobody, but there weren't that many people who expected me to win at the time.
Il-Young, it's a very personal, very intimate thing that you're sharing, that, running for office was really about fulfilling who you are fully. And I'm just curious, were you also, when you were reading those articles, was there some agenda? Was there something that you wanted to accomplish? Was there something that you knew that you were going to champion as a member of the school board? Or was it really all drawn internal?
Embarrassingly, at the time that I didn't really know about education issues, school issues. My kids were small. And so I did not have a first-hand knowledge of what was really going on in public schools either. So, if I wanted to do this, I needed to educate myself. So I began attending school board meetings, go to their committee work sessions, hear their discussions, and began learning that whether there was something that I could do, whether that's something I did really want to do. So, through attending all those meetings and, listening to, debate and discussion and question and answers between, board members and staff, etc., I began learning issues. But at the time when I first ran, instead of focusing on issues, I wanted to focus on what I could bring to the table as a part of this 12-member body.
Yes.
That, there will be 11 other folks that I'm going to have to work with, and they will have to work with me if I get elected. And this is what I can bring to the table. So that's what I focused on.
You started attending these meetings as an observer. You wanted to see what was going on. How long were you observing and paying attention to this before you actually had to run and go through the whole election process?
It took me at least 4 or 5 months, I would say that. But I attended a lot of meetings.
So what I really want to know is, in all of that process, did you feel welcome? Did you feel like you belonged there? Or did you encounter a resistance? Did you encounter people who said, who are you? What are you doing here? What What are you doing here?
In most of those meetings, I had been the only Asian, probably one of very few minority present. And I was just virtually or totally stranger to the people in the room. So, they didn't tell me so, but I mean, I felt that, they were perhaps, looking at me with, what is this guy doing here? And why is this guy a consistently showing up to all these meetings? But I'm sure that after a certain point, people might have, sensed that he might be one of those folks who might be interested in running for the office, running for the school board. Because more and more people began having interest in running for the first elected school board in Fairfax County. As I recall, I think there were 35 candidates altogether for 12 positions.
So I have to reflect. One of the things I learned about you is that the gymnasium at Thomas Jefferson High School was named after you in 2021. That's an extraordinary honor. And so what does that recognition mean to you personally? And is there an example in there for others who step up to lead and serve their communities?
I mean, there was a true honor to me, bestowed upon me, by the school board, because school board is, 12 elected board members. I was not on the board at the time. That they recognized my service, they valued my contribution, and especially, naming the gymnasium and Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology after my name, considering that, both of my sons are TJ grads. They went to TJ.
Oh.
And I spent a lot of my time, cheering for my second son, who was and who still is only a few inches taller than I, short guy. But he played basketball for 4 years. And I was one of those loudest parents cheering for the team and players and for the games. And I supported our athletic programs, throughout entire my school board career. So they saw my service as a board member. They knew, they knew, my support for athletic programs. They knew my heart belonged to the gymnasium at Thomas Jefferson. And that's how my colleagues on the board, even though I was off, wanted to honor me. And that's probably, other than having two boys born in the U.S. and going through schools and doing very well, are now contributing members of a community themselves. That's the biggest recognition that I have, biggest honor that I can really cherish on.
When we were preparing for today, you said that it was important for people to know their primary role as a leader. Il-Young, what was your primary role as a leader?
First, that is an important role that I play is even someone like me, who looks like me, who speaks English with a heavy Korean accent, who might have come to this country as a teenager, second language learner, from a poor family, where undereducated parents had to really struggle to support the family and raise kids, can run for office, can provide a public service, and can be a leader in the community, can become a respected member of leadership where others can look up to you. Especially for me, when I go to many community events and meetings, etc., even in 2025, I may be the only Asian. I may be one of those very few minorities in the room. School board meetings, when students come in, they look up the dais and then say, oh, wow, there is just someone who looks like me there as a part of leadership, leading our schools. That's, I think, the biggest contribution I'm making to this community here, known as Fairfax, with a lot of people from different backgrounds, different countries, and different cultures. Because at the end, we are all here to live together and build a community together.
This is another way of saying representation matters.
Absolutely. And also working with others also matters.
I'm sure that having one's name on a gymnasium on its own is not the single most important accomplishment. But I just wonder if when you see that, does it at least satisfy the part of your heart that drove you to run for public office in the first place? That place where you said you were embarrassed, you weren't living the full life that you imagined. Did that recognition help you realize that, to a large extent, you're living that dream?
Absolutely. And also, I am still on the school board, even though I retired from my day job after 40 years of practicing law. I retired about 4 months ago, but I am still on the school board, and I still have 2 years and 8 months left before my term would expire. I don't know what I would do after that, but still doing, and there are still a lot of work that I need to work on as a part of the school board, and there are a lot of things that I can contribute on. And seeing the name, right above the main entry door to the gymnasium, it's just not for myself, but students go by, students who are using gym, and other community parents and staff members and community members who come to use the gym, who visit the gym. When they get to see my name, they get to think about who is this guy, what this guy has done. Aha. And hopefully, that could, if my name up there could inspire, students and others to do likewise, I'd have accomplished a lot.
It's so fascinating. I work with and interview people who serve on city and town councils and as mayors, and I interview people on school boards. And you've just tapped into something that I run into frequently, which is people who work for municipalities. They think over a very long time frame. They're thinking 20 years, 50 years, because they're building, roads and sewer systems and pipes that are going to have to stand for a very long period of time. When I work with people in education, it's very much in the now, because the children who are in high school today, in 5 years, won't be in high school anymore. And if we miss the opportunity to provide the curriculum or the support that they need, that we will have lost that for all time. So what I'm hearing from you is there's an immediacy to it, but the trade-off is that on the municipal side, it's physically tangible. We're building buildings. It's different on the education side because we're building people. We're educating, and we can't see the results for a long time to come. Am I understanding you right?
Yes, it's going to take 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and 50 years to educate and support, help that person grow, become mature, and turn around, do the same for others to get to that level. So you say immediacy, providing necessary education and support is needed right now. And that has to be consistent. That has to be consistent from kindergarten, preschool, all the way up to high school and college and beyond. Has to be consistent. today, tomorrow, and continuing on. But getting something back, you need to be more patient because it's gonna take a 20 years, someone to be that level, 30 years.
Ilang, I've had the pleasure of speaking with so many civic leaders around Northern Virginia, thanks to the sponsorship from Relly. And I've enjoyed talking with everyone. And one of the things that I have learned is that collaboration among many different types of civic leaders, from school boards to municipalities, it happens a lot there. It seems to be baked into the DNA of Northern Virginia that there is this collaboration. And I'm curious if there's an experience you've had that really speaks to the value of that and what makes that work. What should we understand about the nature of collaboration among a variety of civic and municipal entities?
I mostly work with a county board of supervisors in Fairfax County because, school board not having a taxing authority, we have to get their financial support, provide education. And I also need to work with the state legislators because they also provide, large part of our financial needs to support public education here. And, you may say that, Matt, you are talking about this because you are focused on this because you are a school board member. But that's what I do. I'm focused on education. That is what I do. I don't do land use. I don't do transportation. I don't even do taxation. I don't do job growth, even though I do job growth for the future generation. So very fortunately in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax County, elected leaders, whether they are from municipality or state or school board, we all agree that education, public education, is of the most importance. It's their top priority. They may not agree on exact amount of funding that should go in, but they all agree that is at the very top of their priority list. So with that in mind, even when there are some differences in how to approach this, how to tackle certain challenges, with that all agreed upon, we can get this done, which is continuing to provide the highest quality education, public education for our students in Fairfax County, no matter what their backgrounds are.
It sounds like the lesson you're saying is we may differ on the means that we think is best to get to the destination, but that what civic leaders throughout Northern Virginia share is a common belief that education is a top priority.
Well said, Matt. Well said. So there is no disagreement on that with any of the elected leaders in this area.
Il-Young, I have one final question for you.
Okay, all right.
You've spent decades serving your community in education, planning, public service. With all of the challenges facing schools and government at every level today, what makes you optimistic for the future, and especially for those who may be feeling overwhelmed or defeated or powerless in this moment? What advice do you have for them?
I've been doing this for 30 years, right? From mid-1990s, caring about education all my life. I will be turning 68 this year, Matt. So this, valuing education has been in my blood for close to 70 years. And I know that only through education, we're going to be able to provide the better future for our next generations and our community. And with a new administration coming in Washington, D.C., a lot of us in public education are stressed. Many of our parents, we know that, lost their jobs. They have to worry about how they can support their families. So, growing up, again, in Korea, here in the U.S., serving as a board member, valuing education, even when times are tough, especially when times are tough, if we can focus on the most vulnerable part of the community, most vulnerable students, that we will ultimately overcome these hard times, difficulties will one day all pass. Meanwhile, let's help the last, lost, and least, the most vulnerable population in schools and in the communities. And that, if we focus on that, that will give us a hope for tomorrow and future.
It's a beautiful sentiment. What you're saying is, even when we're feeling stress, even when we're feeling overwhelmed, even when times are tough for us, we still have the ability to help those people who are even more vulnerable than we are in this moment.
And we must help those. Because I was one of those most vulnerable person growing up. And when, teachers and the opportunities of free public education that duly adopted country of the United States of America provided me with, I am here. I've been here to serve. I've been able to return all that to help other students to grow and hopefully be able to do the same thing that I have done and even better.
Il-Young Moon, you started out by saying that you were publicity shy, and I understand why, but I have to say it's been absolutely wonderful to speak with you, and I'm so grateful to you for being willing to open up and share your story. There's a lot here that we're all going to learn from, and I'm really grateful to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you again. Thanks for being patient once again for scheduling this session. But I'm happy to be here and enjoy the conversation with you, Matt.
It was really worthwhile. Thank you so much. Again, thank you to my guest, Il-Young Moon, who serves on the Fairfax County School Board in Northern Virginia. And thank you again to RELI, the Regional Elected Leaders Initiative at the Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University, for their sponsorship of this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Your feedback helps others discover the show. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. This episode was edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. If you have a question or a comment about today's topic, I'd love to hear from you. Reach me at 602-688-2724 or Matt, M-A-T-T, at socialprosperity.us. Do you have a story of lessons learned on your journey to leadership? Click the podcast guest link in the program notes. I'm always looking for instructive and inspiring voices to feature on the show. Upon reflection, Il-Young Moon's story is a powerful reminder that leadership isn't just one path. It's shaped by experience, perseverance, and the courage to step forward. Our system of government is supposed to welcome new voices and fresh perspective. That openness, the idea that anyone with the passion to serve can contribute, is meant to be our strength. And yet that promise is being tested today in ways that we can't ignore. Il-Young's journey from immigrant and second language learner to elected leader proves why that promise matters. It shows what's possible when we embrace new ideas, trust the democratic process, and recognize that leadership belongs to those willing to do the work. No matter where your own leadership journey begins, his story is proof that stepping up and staying true to your values can create real impact. Public service isn't about titles, it's about making a difference. And if you're willing to lead, your community needs you. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.